All right, we will start with the 6:30 public hearing. I'm calling that to order. This is an ordinance implementing the recommendations of the Civilian Police Review Board. We'll begin with roll call. Mr. Davidoff?
Good evening, Madam Mayor. Councilor Blanks.
Present.
Mayor Cantor.
Here.
Councilor Cortez.
Here.
Councilor Faye's absent. Councilor McGinnis.
Here.
Councilor Poland.
Here.
Councilor Walters.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Winograd.
Here.
Councilor Zdanowitz.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. We will begin with a presentation from Town Manager, Mr. Ledwith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For the record, Rick Ledwith, Town Manager. The purpose of this public hearing is to implement changes recommended by the Civilian Police Review Board to Section 5-132 of the town's Code of Ordinances. By way of background, the town's West Hartford Civilian Police Review Board was established by the Town Council back in February of 2021. The purpose of the Civilian Police Review Board is to promote public confidence in the professionalism and accountability of the West Hartford Police Department through the unbiased review and evaluation of investigation reports involving complaints against the sworn personnel and civilian employees at the West Hartford Police Department. In accordance with its ordinance, the Civilian Police Review Board submits an annual report to the Public Safety Standing Committee. The annual report provides a summary of the disposition of all complaints reviewed by the board over a fiscal year, as well as any policy recommendations. The Civilian Police Review Board presented its second annual report to the Public Safety Committee on June 7th of 2023. The annual report consisted of 3 recommendations with respect to the Civilian Police Review Board processes, and 2 of those recommendations being amendments to its ordinance. Under the current ordinance, the Civilian Police Review Board has the authority to sustain or remand a completed police department investigation. In the event that the Civilian Police Review Board remands an investigation back to the police chief, the Civilian Police Review Board shall make findings as to thoroughness, completeness, accuracy, and the objectivity of the investigation. The Civilian Police Review Board felt that making findings on the basis of thoroughness and completeness were too similar in nature, and as such wanted to replace the term completeness with outcome, meaning that the Civilian Police Review Board could find a completed investigation to be thorough, accurate, and objective, but still disagree with the outcome of the investigation. The other ordinance amendment deals with what may happen after this Civilian Police Review Board remands a case back to the police chief. To the extent that the Civilian Police Review Board remands a completed investigation to the police chief and the police chief disagrees with its findings, the police chief shall provide the Civilian Police Review Board the basis for that disagreement. That concludes the ordinance changes that for your review tonight, Mayor and Town Council, and happy to answer any questions that you may have. Through you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. Ms. Blanks, as Chair of Public Safety, I know this was discussed in your committee. If you want to.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. And yes, it seems like so long ago
I know.
when we did discuss this in committee. However, first off, I do want to send thanks and praise to the committee, as well as to the chairwoman, Linda Morales, and the rest of the members of that committee who do work very hard and diligent as volunteers and take their roles very seriously in terms of working with the police chief. We did discuss this in committee, and the members of the committee were in agreement and felt that this was appropriate and would recommend this to the council. So I wholeheartedly support this, Madam Mayor, and would urge my council members to do the same. And again, all the praise to Chairwoman Morales and her team.
Thank you, Ms. Blanks. Are there any questions or comments for the Town Manager? I don't think we have anybody signed up to speak. Mr. Clerk, have you had any, received any written comments?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to see that there's very few people in the audience, and I know why they're here? Okay. Any further comments, questions before I close the public hearing? All right, very good. I just would like to echo Ms. Blank's comments and thank the Civilian Police Review Board for their tremendous work. And I want to, give a shout out to our Corporation Council for helping us get this up and going so quickly. We were, I think, the first in the state to have a full Civilian Police Review Board. So thank you very much. All right, hearing is closed, and we will begin the other hearing in about 8 minutes. Thank you. We are at 6:45, so we are going to call the 6:45 public hearing to order. This is an application filed on behalf of Chick-fil-A as lessee of property commonly known as 509 New Park Avenue, CFA Premises, to modify Special Design District Number 94, SDD 94, located at 509 New Park to accommodate a reconfiguration of the existing drive-through lane and related site improvements, including landscaping and parking. And we will begin with roll call. Mr. Davidoff.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. Councilor Blanks.
Present.
Mayor Cantor.
Here.
Councilor Cortez.
Here.
Councilor Fay is absent. Seated for Councilor Fay is Mr. Dorr.
Here.
Councilor McGinnis.
Here.
Councilor Poland.
Here.
Councilor Walters.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Winograd.
Here.
Councilor Zidanowitz.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff, and I want to welcome Mr. Dorr back to the table. He has served as on the council before. It's nice to have a seasoned alternate, and that we appreciate that very much. And thank you to Carol for giving you up for an evening. So, all right. So we will begin with the applicant presentation from the applicant.
Good evening, ladies. Off. Okay, sorry. Thank you. Good evening. Amy Suchins here on behalf of Chick-fil-A Inc., which is the lessee. Seated to my right is Nick Dewhurst, who is our project engineer, and we have a whole Chick-fil-A team, including our operator, here in the audience in the event that there are any questions about what we're going to present to you tonight. But as you noted in the introduction, this is a fairly minor revision to the drive-through lane and some associated landscaping as a result of those modifications of the drive-through lane. Many of you probably know, if you've been to the site, this is currently a drive-through configuration that predates Chick-fil-A's modern standard for a dual lane queue. Nick will go through the technical details, but what this is intended to do is to address a lot of the traffic backups and stacking that has, particularly Chick-fil-A has experienced in the post-COVID world, where people choose to utilize the drive-through more heavily than they did beforehand and coming into the store. So we have been through all of your referral agencies. TPZC provided a positive referral. We were at design review last week, and they also provided a positive referral. We've addressed all of the comments that we've had from the engineering department. There was an updated set of plans that was submitted to your staff last Friday. And most importantly, we do have a letter of support from the Chamber of Commerce in support of the revisions that you see here. One other housekeeping note: we did note or submit the sign affidavit for the posting to the staff, to Mr. Dumais earlier today. So with that, I'll turn it over to Nick to walk you through the details, and then we're happy to address any questions or other items that we're not affirmatively presenting.
Thank you, Amy. Again, for the record, Nick Dewhurst with Bowler. We're the site civil engineer on the project. So as Amy mentioned, and I know you guys all have a printout of this plan that we're looking at in front of you, so I can sort of just walk you through that. So the red line work that you're seeing, that's the proposed improvements. So just to kind of highlight some of the bigger picture items here, as Amy mentioned, really our goal here is just to bring the drive-through up to a more modern Chick-fil-A standard. And really what we're doing to do that is we're creating a two-lane drive-through throughout its entire length. So you can see we're expanding the entrance of the drive-through from about 12 feet to 22 feet, again, to create that second full-length lane. And similarly at the exit, we're expanding that to create that second full-length lane as well. In creating that full-length lane, we are relocating a handful of parking spaces. The total site today consists of 114 spaces. It will result in 112 with these improvements. Additionally, within the drive-through, there will be some pavement marking improvements, and really, again, this is sort of Chick-fil-A's standard design. We're creating a 3-foot access aisle in the middle of the two drive-through lanes, and that's really for team member access to serve meals or take orders from customers. In addition to the drive-through and parking improvements, we're also relocating the storage shed that currently exists at the rear of the trash enclosure. With the new expanded drive-through, we just need to relocate that storage shed just to the side of it. And we're also proposing some pretty significant landscaping improvements here, mainly around the new landscape islands that we'll be creating as part of the parking improvements. That's sort of a high-level overview of the proposed improvements. As Amy said, we received comments from the engineering department, and we did work through those. We made some minor adjustments to some signage and pavement markings as requested. So with that being said, I think we're happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
Thank you, Nick and Amy. Appreciate it. I'm going to open to questions, but I do want to just recognize public comment first. Mr. Davidoff, did you receive any written comments?
Yes, Madam Mayor. On January 19th, 2024, we received a letter in support of the application from Christopher Conway, President CEO of the West Hartford Chamber.
Thank you, and that's it, and nobody signed up. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak to this application? Okay. Questions by the council? Anybody have a question? Ms. Blanks, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the presentation as well as the application. I do have a few questions, especially since I frequent that plaza quite often, and when my daughters are here, they're Chick-fil-A women. So where do I want to begin? Let's begin with the current drive lane. So right now, when you drive into Chick-fil-A, you come through one stop sign, then you go through a second stop sign, and you turn left. You have your cones up, so you can't go in that direction. You have to go down one drive aisle and then come around to, I think, the second one, right?
Yes,
So
correct.
right now, when you come through that second one, you drive up, there's one lane, and then that one lane bifurcates into two lanes where you place your order. And then it goes into one lane to pick up your food. So are you proposing to have that two lane all the way to the window to pick up your food? So if you're on the outer lane, is someone bringing the food to the car? So
Sure. Yeah, and if needed, I can have some of our Chick-fil-A representatives speak to the actual operations in a little bit more detail, but that is correct. We will be creating two full-length drive-through lanes from the beginning to the end. To answer your question sort of on as to the traffic circulation, as you mentioned, there are cones, from what I know, sort of blocking off traffic entering into the drive-through from that point. As part of the improvements, we're actually going to be putting a painted stop bar and do not enter pavement marking to sort of further delineate that, to kind of make it an actual permanent solution and part of the traffic circulation out there. So the general traffic circulation will stay the same, but it will be sort of more reinforced and a permanent solution.
thank you for that response, because what I was thinking was, so that area won't be narrowed, the length will remain the same, but you will just put something there to prevent people, because I have seen
Oh
some
yeah,
people-
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
Alright.
we still have the 24 feet, which is sort of typical for two-way traffic, but there won't be that sort of entrance point there. It's really just an exit only, and it will be properly signed and marked as such.
Okay, thank you. I have another question through you, Madam Mayor. The other thing that's interesting is maybe about a month or so ago when I was getting gas, I noticed that you had a delivery truck there. So the delivery truck is not able to come into that area. The delivery truck has to park over on the other side of the stop sign. Is that accurate? Do you know that? Or am I incorrect? Because that's what I saw him do. So that's why I'm asking the question.
So we do have the operator here. It might be a good opportunity if he wants to speak to that.
And just to clarify, you mean a supplier truck, not the Chick-fil-A?
So,
truck.
and perhaps that's going to be my question, because what I noticed was it appeared to be either supplier or delivery, but they couldn't park where your cars are parked, so they had to park on the other side. I guess that's a island, perhaps, the area where the stop sign is, where you turn right to go into the gas station. And I was concerned because as I was turning left to exit out of the center, he was trying to get across with the, what do you call the things that you push? The dolly, thank
Hand
you.
truck, yeah.
I noticed there wasn't a crosswalk, so there's just a stop sign and then the painted stop. So that's another concern of mine as you begin to make this improvement.
Thank you for the question. What you saw that day was not our standard operating procedure. Ideally, those delivery trucks from our supplier show up in the middle of the night when there's no one there. What happens on occasion, if a truck breaks down or a driver calls out sick, the truck may be delayed, and that's what you witnessed that day. So we do try to get out there and help coordinate in traffic and what have you to prevent any potential accidents from occurring.
Mr. Jackson, just for the record, could
Yes,
you
ma'am.
say your complete name and also your role?
Yes, my apologies. Daryl Jackson. I am the operator in West Hartford, Connecticut. Been here for, I guess we're approaching 7 years now that we've been in town. Goes quick. And I have been delighted with the support that we have received from this community in terms of growing our business and giving us the opportunity to provide gainful employment to a number of employees that are from the community as well. So thank you for what you do.
I'm all set. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Blanks. Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Mr. Zdanowitz.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You had mentioned in your, I think it was you, Nick, it could have been Amy, either one, but I wasn't here originally when this, 7 years ago, when this came through town council, or 8 years ago probably. But you had mentioned that this new redesign is your standard operating Chick-fil-A operation. And I'm wondering why if it's the standard operating, why you hadn't implemented that in the original design, and if there were barriers up at that time with zoning, or this was the solution at the time and it's been redesigned through your organization. Just kind of curious about that.
Right. That's exactly what it was the layout that you see, and I've worked on some other around the same time, and we're working on updating a number of sites across Connecticut. What you see out there right now was the current design in that time frame, and what has happened, as I said at the beginning, particularly in a post-COVID world. I think we're not the only one, but Chick-fil-A is certainly a industry leader in its drive-through design and management. They have found that this really does add a lot of efficiency to the layout and to the queue. Gideon, or frankly Daryl, can walk you through sort of the details of how it actually works if you're interested, and that would be helpful in understanding how both queues work. But ultimately, that's what it was that this is a more recent prototype design.
If I could add some more color to that.
Also, just if you could state your name and...
Gideon Lee, excuse me, with JLL, the development manager for this project. So as Amy has mentioned, post-COVID road, this is now our, adapted prototype. Our, coming out of COVID, our sales channels have shifted heavily from dine-in, typically, to our drive-through. So obviously we've adapted to that with our latest prototype. But before that, we didn't anticipate our sales channel shifting so heavily. Nobody anticipated COVID for what it was. So that's simply that. Our prototype has changed, and now this is our latest and greatest.
Thank you.
I thought that was a good question, Mr. Zdanowitz. Okay. Mr. Cortez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So my question is, if approved, what's the timeline? How long will it take to do this, and what impact would it have on the Aldi's, which kind of shares the same parking lot?
Yeah, and I can speak to that, and I'll defer to Nick on the permitting timelines, and you guys are all very in tune with the entitlements process. But I would say this would probably be projected for a early 2025 start. If we were to project it out, that will give us enough time to get permits in hand, give us enough time to get a GC on board, so on and so forth. That's the projected construction start date would be early 25.
Right. The one thing I would add is that after we get through the SDD amendment process, because this drive-through predates your more recent drive-through amendment, we have to go back through TPZC. So we have one more round of approval on this before we can start, as Gideon noted, the building permit construction timeframe, which is why it seems like it's very far away for the type of improvement we're talking about, but that's why ultimately we have one more step.
And I don't believe I answered your question on the Aldi component, and we've worked very closely with Aldi, went through multiple iterations to get to where we are today, and they've approved our plan as it stands. So we are going through those legal routes of making sure that's all dotted. So we will have their official approval for this project.
So I guess, so the question was more with the construction, and we'll probably need to see who the general contractor is and
Right.
see the times and, what, so until we don't do that piece, we probably won't know the answer as far as, hours of hours of the construction and if that's gonna have.
Right, and they'll have approval rights on our, construction, our laydown areas and such. We'll be predominantly bifurcated from Aldi's operations. Like that won't Aldi will not be affected by our construction, but we will be working closely with Aldi on that.
And then the most important question, will you guys be open while that's happening, or am I gonna have to go somewhere else?
That's a great question. Unfortunately, we will have a door replacement there. There's a window yeah, exactly there. It's just a pickup window. We would be installing what's called a Tormax door. It's a proprietary door that opens up fully so that team members can deliver to the second lane and hug the inner lane as well. So that requires a short amount of shutdown, not what you're used to 6 to 8 weeks in other areas. But hopefully it'll be a short hitter, especially for Daryl. We want to get him open as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Cortez. That is good news. So will both drive-throughs be operational at when that window?
There will be a phasing plan that we'll have to generate with our general contractor once they're on board. But the idea is to get one lane fully constructed. And, just by looking at this plan, I don't want to, speak too early on. But I think we'll have some opportunities to phase it out properly. But there will be some disruptions, obviously.
Sure. Okay. Ms. McGinnis. Oh.
Thank you for the presentation. I just wanted to confirm that I wrote this down right. You said you have 114 spaces currently, and after completion, you'll have 112. Is that correct?
Yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McGinnis. Ms. Blanks?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So during the construction and then after the construction, so I just kind of thought just occurred to me in terms of you'll have the 2 drive lanes, so you'll have some increase in volume there. Then during construction, since you share it with Aldi, so some people may need to park on the other side and walk over, whether it's during construction or after. And Mr. Town Manager, I don't know if this is a town issue, but I'm thinking about the crosswalk and the markings that something else would need to be established just in terms of safety, because that area is pretty busy in terms of BJ's and those cars backing up often, and then the cars turning into Aldi's, and then the cars turning into Chick-fil-A as well. So I don't know who would need to address that, but that is a concern
So
of mine.
as part of the project, the team has agreed to refresh all of the crosswalks, not just within the parking lot there at Aldi's and Chick-fil-A, but outside on the main strip that when you take a left into the development parking lot.
Okay, thank you for that. So I just want to be clear, so the development, so when you come in, there's the stop sign there where you can turn right going towards Home Depot, left to BJ's, and then there's another stop sign there. So we're talking about putting in some crosswalk markings there, or just leaving the word stop on that street or on that drive lane, if that's what you refer to it as.
If I could speak to that, and then I'll let Amy go as well. So that's a great question and great point. Unfortunately, we do have a leased premises that's pretty much curb in meaning our sidewalk, if you can imagine our Chick-fil-A building, and then we have our sidewalk. Our lease line is really from that outside curb, and it goes in. So that's what we technically have rights over. So we would need to have Aldi make those improvements. And again, we just don't have that control on what we paint or, construct outside of our premises, if that makes sense.
I understand that, so that's why I'm raising it now while you're going to be doing these improvements.
And if I could add on the construction side, so just a little bit of clarity, like when we are shut down for that door installation, we're going to do as much drive-through as we can, because customers aren't going to be there. You'll have some people come in and do a U-turn and go out, but it'll be fully shut down. So hopefully, I think that let's call it a week max of shutdown. That should give us enough runway to do a lot of drive-through improvements. And then, today, we're not changing the pattern of the drive-through coming in, like doing that U-turn, like you'd mentioned, Ms. Blanks. So that will stay, and that will act as our, emergency queue, if that makes sense. So we'll have that as extra measure to make sure that we're, putting all the cars out of that busy intersection and into our site and into our queue, if that helps.
Thank you for that, though. Thank you for the clarification. So my concern is I would prefer for it to be addressed beforehand instead of something happening and then we would have to do something after. If an accident occurs, someone gets hit, or anything like that.
Right. So this was one of the items that we discussed with Mr. Dumais about the engineering comments for, as Gideon noted, our leased premises is frankly in the building and the drive-through in sort of the interior. The engineering comments we got earlier today were talking about some of the things you mentioned with the crosswalk and everything, as Gideon noted, outside of our leased premises. Aldi is actually our landlord. So what we discussed and Mr. Dumais was looking at was there is an obligation in the entire SDD for maintenance. And so we will certainly, as part of this project, alert Aldi, as Gideon noted. They're aware that we're coming in, that there might be comments or questions or anything like that. So we will alert them to the request that this maintenance and some of the wear that's been done, I think it's ultimately one of the, I think it's the last engineering comment, that's the request. Mr. Dumais did note that in the existing SDD, nothing that we're amending, there is that maintenance obligation. And so if it's not completed, he actually has enforcement authority to make sure it's done.
Good questions, Ms. Blanks. Mr. Winograd.
Thank you. So I just have and I know you were sort of queued up to talk about the details of exactly how the car service, how it works. So I do have questions about the, sort of worker safety process. You've got, I see in the your response to town that you've got members directing customers on traffic. So they're actually in the road, sort of doing that direction. And then you have other staff members that'll be coming out to bring food to the outer. So I'd like to hear about your sort of safety standards,
Sure.
What training you're doing to ensure that
Absolutely.
that sort of in the rush of, the busy time of day, people aren't stepping in front of cars.
Absolutely, and that's a great question.
And also just if you, whether or not, since this is a standard that you have elsewhere, whether you have had OSHA incidents in other places, and whether they've been addressed,
Sure.
If those have happened.
So on that first part of the question, that's a great point. So our prototype, and obviously safety is a huge factor for Chick-fil-A. We're a global company, and it's, if one thing happens in California, it could affect the brand. So they put a huge emphasis on safety. So that inner 3-foot team member striping that you see between the two lanes, that's where the team members will either take orders at the order point. If you look at the plan, further plan north, There's a dual canopy there that team members today take orders at. So they're protected by that 3-foot team member space, and they could walk along that entire 3-foot team member space. And then when they get to the meal delivery point at the window, if you will, or I guess now it's going to be a door, they can safely cross. What you see in the 3 like Adidas lines, that's a crosswalk for team members to get over safely. And again, to be protected in that 3-foot team member zone, all along that, between the meal order point and then the meal delivery point. So that's one aspect. And then all our team members wear high vis gear, and they go through safety measures and safety videos. I'll defer to Daryl on the frequency and what have you. We can fill you in more details there. So our safety measures are pretty robust with our team members. Obviously, our number one thing is care for our team members and our guests as well. And Daryl, if you want to speak to the actual details.
Yes. So thank you for what you've offered up thus far. We are extremely diligent about trying to train team members that they are always aware of their surroundings, not only for their own personal safety, but obviously for the safety of the customers. I actually believe the future state model that we're talking about here today will be safer than the model that we run today, because there's quite a deal of additional markings and safety zones that are established and present and visible in the future state that we don't even have today. So I think through the continued training that we do, the reassessments that we do on a frequent basis, especially as we're introducing new employees into the environment, as well as staying on top of all that high visibility gear. I don't know if anyone's been to the restaurant, you've seen these big vests, reflective vests that our team wears in an effort to make sure that customers can see them and that they stand out. We even give them those fluorescent green hats that they all hate, but again, in an effort to make sure that they stand out. So I think those training routines, in addition to the additional visibility and signage we'll have here, is going to make it even more of a safe environment. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, pretty much. In that lane that you pointed out, how is that? Is there are there physical barriers, or is it just a painted lane? I'm not familiar with the.
It's a 3-foot.
Right, is there a curb or?
It's a gore striping within. It is not restricted by any permanent measures.
Okay.
Daryl may choose to put some removable bollards as he chooses to direct traffic or what have you, but it would be striping, gore striping.
Okay. Yep. And you don't have there are no bollards or anything like that. You could put temporary, but no permanent.
Exactly, because your big F-250s will blow through those,
right,
making that tight turn. But yeah, it's just the gore striping.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
If I could add just one last thing, team members aren't typically going to be there delivering the meals. They're not going to be walking down and back and forth at the meal delivery point. But at the meal order point, that's where they'll have their iPads protected within that 3-foot team member space. And there you have columns to protect you if you look at the order points.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Mr. Cortez.
I just wanted to go back to something in regards to what Councilor Blanks was talking about, because I do understand that the applicant, it's beyond their application, but it's something that so what she's talking about, there's a stop, where it's a stop, so just over the box there, you see how you have the box, and if you go up north, no, right above the cross box right there. You see how, yep, and you go to the road, and you see it says stop, there's 2 lanes. Yes, so I think that's what Councilor Blanks is referring to, and it does get a little hairy at certain times right around there. So prior to the applicant completing their construction, if there's any way that the town can reach out to the SDD and address that issue, because this is probably a little bit outdated when all these was formed, and things have evolved over time, especially with the pandemic. So the traffic there is probably heavier than what we expected, 15 years ago. So I think that's what Councilor Blanks is talking about, and I'm wondering if that's something that we can discuss at another time.
We can, through you, Madam Mayor. And actually, I had a communication from our town planner that I didn't read. It was sent at 5:40 p.m. and it does draw attention to Councilor Blanks and actually what the attorney had stated as well. So it's part of the larger STD in that area. And we are, Mr. Dumais had mentioned that we would send the zoning enforcement officer out to meet with the larger development and start to address the refreshing of the paint throughout the entire site. So it doesn't fall under the authority of SDD number 94, but we would be addressing that through the larger SDD.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cortez. Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. Mr. Walters.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. It also occurs to me that that's a bus stop right there and with a pullout, so a simple crosswalk might not be practical there with the bus pullout. I don't, and it's more than just.
There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on right in that little spot right there, so it may be beyond even the current, who we're talking to right now. CT Transit may be part of the equation.
Mr. Walters, I think you're right, and that was one of the thoughts I had. I think we need to follow up a conversation with our town planner, make sure all the parties understand that what is happening in that intersection. And I do remember when we had approved all these, there was a lot of discussion about that too. So, yeah, but that's not that is outside of your lease, and so we will have those discussions. Are there any other questions? Mr. Dorr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The angle on the curve coming up to the window, I assume that Chick-fil-A and other drive-thrus are always conscious of the proper angles for a true driveway.
That's
drive-thru,
accurate.
and that is consistent with typical layouts. This is not, you can see I'm getting at the point of it's not too tight.
Exactly, and we have our prototypical, I'll defer to Nick on this one, but this one is greater than a 20-foot radius, which is our absolute minimum. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. This plan does, it actually provides larger radiuses than the Chick-fil-A standards do allow. So we're confident that there will be no issues with the tightness of those turns.
Thank you, Mr. Dorr. And I had that was one of my questions. And the current lane is 12 feet, though, I thought. And so now you have two 10-foot lanes, and the 10-foot lanes, driving in them feels, especially if you're in a Ford 150 or a Suburban or something, feels small. So I just want to make sure also that navigating that, and if you had two side by side, how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you look at the first radius after the order point, after that first canopy, you can see that we are peeling back that curb from existing, while the lanes are being somewhat reduced. So our absolute minimum is 9 feet nationwide, program wide, and to adapt to industry standards, we lead with 10. We'd like 12 in a lot of regions, but just with the constraints of our site, we try to squeeze in as much as we can. And quite honestly, operationally speaking, and I'll defer to Daryl on how he chooses to run it, but typically after the order point, we merge your guest. We send the guest into one lane, whether it's the outside or inner lane. So it's not going to be common that you have the dual, like two cars stacked up on that second lane. But we will get to a point from a capacity perspective that may happen. But when that does come, I believe that the 9.7 and the 9 and the 10 and the 10.1 will be sufficient on those for the cars.
Okay, thank you. And just worrying about snow removal or whatever, and that's probably one of the reasons why bollards or dividers are difficult for that, or even a raised, I don't know. But is there going to be any change in the way that works for you?
So currently, we contract with a third party that comes in, plows the drive-through or handles all of our snow removal. It's the same organization that does the rest of the plaza. They treat the drive-through a little differently with certain specialized products, but I don't envision that process changing at all. In terms of, what are those cones called? The magnetic.
The removable bollards.
The removable bollards, we'll use that a lot during the course of the operation to direct traffic or keep people in their lane, if you will. But those are also easily removed for snow removal.
Makes sense. And the last question I had is different than my colleagues. The storage shed moving out, that has no food in it or anything, right? That's just supplies.
Supplies, yep.
Mm-hmm. And navigating through those drive lanes to a dumpster or whatever is not that. There's really no significant change in that either, correct?
No.
Correct.
All right. Okay, last round of. All right, then I have to do my read into the records. And I know that Attorney Sushan, am I saying that right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Referred to it, but I just want to read it in for the record. A letter dated January 8, 2024 from Town Planning and Zoning Commission recommending approval. Letter dated January 19, 2024 from Design Review Advisory Committee recommending approval. Letter dated January 10, 2024 from Capital Region Council of Governments finding no apparent conflict with regional plans or policies or the concerns of neighboring towns. If there's no further questions, public hearing is closed and we will begin our next public hearings. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Okay, 7:15, yes, we are, it's time. We're calling, absolutely, yes, I know, we're moving fast. Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you. All right. All set? Okay. 7:15, public hearing to order. This is an ordinance concerning group child care homes. We will begin with roll call. Mr. Davidoff?
Good evening, Madam Mayor. Councilor Blanks.
Present.
Mayor Cantor.
Here.
Councilor Cortez.
Here.
Councilor Fay is absent. Seated for Councilor Fay is Mr. Dorr.
Here.
Councilor McGinnis.
Here.
Councilor Poland.
Here.
Councilor Walters.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Winograd.
Here.
Councilor Zdanowitz.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. And we'll begin with a presentation from Mr. Ledwith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For the record, Rick Ledwith, Town Manager. The purpose of tonight's public hearing is to amend the town zoning ordinance concerning group child care homes to comply with Public Act 23-142. Public Act 23-142 states that no zoning regulation shall treat a group child care home located in a residence and licensed by the Office of Early Childhood in a manner different from single or multifamily dwellings, and that any zoning regulations adopted pursuant to the change shall not prohibit the operation in a residential zone of any group child care home located in a residence or require any special zoning permit or special exception for such operation. In order to comply with this act, we will make limited changes to our zoning ordinances, first to section 177-2 under definitions, and then to section 177-6B, schedule of permitted main uses. Under definitions, we will change our current language from group daycare home to group child care home to comply with the state language. Under either name, it does not change the actual definition, which offers or provides a program of supplementary care to not fewer than 7 nor more than 12 related or unrelated children on a regular basis. The other change we make to the definition is amending State of Connecticut to Connecticut Office of Early Childhood. The second change is to section 177-6, schedule of permitted main uses under use number 4, where we will change group daycare home to group child care home, and then add number 10. This use is permitted subject to issuance of a building and/or zoning permit. In closing, these changes bring our local zoning ordinance into compliance with Public Act 23-142. This change was discussed at our Community Planning and Economic Development Committee meeting on October 28, 2023, and did receive positive referrals from our Town Plan and Zoning Commission, as well as the Capital Region Council of Governments. I will pause there through you, Madam Mayor. Turn it over to the council for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. I just want to make sure that if we did not adopt tonight these changes, we would be out of compliance with state, and that all that we're doing, it's
Absolutely correct. So this will bring us into compliance with the Public Act that was brought into law on October 1st of 2023. We did issue a letter to the Office of Policy Management, letting them know that this vote was taking place this evening, and then we would follow up with OPM following a vote at the regular council meeting to let them know that this has been adopted. But we have to comply with the state statute. Short answer to your question, sorry.
And do we have a certain time period that we need to do that by?
So, nope. So, like I said, it was October 1st that the law went into place. So we technically are covered by this statute right now. We did issue that letter to OPM, letting them know where we were in the statute and the legal process in terms of the public hearing. So they know that the hearing is taking place this evening, and then we'll issue a letter tomorrow letting them know that it's been adopted, but technically we're following it to law back to October 1st. But we do not have any homes or child care homes in West Hartford that fall within these guidelines today presently.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. Any questions for the town manager? Doesn't sound like we have a lot of input anyway. So,
Yeah.
all right. No questions. Are there any written comments? And Mr. Davidoff, have you, as town clerk, received any
No written comments, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody in the audience, I don't think so, that would like to speak to this public hearing? All right, and while you're doing that, I just am reading in the record, letter dated January 12th, 2024, from Town Plan Zoning Commission recommending approval, and letter dated January 10th, 2024, from Capital Region Council of Governments finding no apparent conflict with regional plans and policies or concerns of neighboring towns. All right, and with that, I will close the public hearing, and we will begin the council meeting in just a few minutes.
Right on time.
Yep. Thirty seconds. All right.
Like riding a bike, right?
We're calling the 7:30 January 23rd Town Council meeting to order, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Mr. Davidoff.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. Councilor Blanks.
Present?
Mayor Cantor.
Here.
Councilor Cortez.
Here.
Councilor Fay is absent. Seated from the zoning matters is Mr. Dorr.
Here.
Councilor McGinnis.
Here.
Councilor Poland.
Here.
Councilor Walters.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Winograd.
Here.
Councilor Zdanowitz.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. You're supposed to drop your voice at the end, so I'm like, ready to go. Okay. So we begin with public forum. I don't know if anybody has signed up to speak, but while we're checking for that, I don't think that's the case. I'm just going to ask for your indulgence for a minute. One of the most difficult tasks our police department has is ensuring the public safety while also allowing freedom of speech and protest. And I think everybody at this table knows some businesses in West Hartford Center were vandalized during a protest this weekend. We have all heard from a number of residents who are concerned about what happened, and so we have invited the police chief and assistant chiefs, I see too, to brief the council on the event and have an opportunity to ask questions on police department's ongoing efforts to protect public safety. So without objection, I move that we suspend the rules to receive a briefing from the chief of police on public safety. Is there any objection? Okay, hearing no objection. Mr. Chief Riddick, you are up.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and fellow councilors. It's a pleasure to be before you. I guess I'll start off with, first, are there any questions? I know there's been a lot of chatter on social media. The mayor's office and the town manager have solicited questions and concerns. So I want to address those first if you had any yourself, or maybe through your constituents who may have contacted you.
Ms. McGinnis, go ahead.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Chief Riddick, for being here tonight. My question is, how many, I know there was the original protest here outside at Town Hall. How many people were on LaSalle? Do they have an exact number of the people that were there participating in?
Yeah, we don't have an exact number. We approximate between 150 and 200, somewhere around there.
So that's the group that broke off and went to LaSalle?
Well, first it started at Town Hall, and went around to Blueback, came back up Farmington, and then down, took a left onto LaSalle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. McGinnis. Any other questions? Ms. Poland?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Chief Riddick, thank you for being here tonight. I'll start with this, just one question about the impacted businesses. Has the vandalism been cleaned up? Are they back up and running and having all that cleaned up off of their the face of the business?
I know the DPW has gone out there with a power washer to get a lot of that off. It was some very paint that was sticking, and it was very difficult to do that. I was not aware that they have closed for today, unless someone else had other information. So I believe they're open for business, and it was just the paint that had to be cleaned up.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councilor Poland. So we were in touch with the business owner on Sunday, shortly after the event. Any attempt to try to clean it that evening or even early in the morning, the temperatures were so low we weren't able to either get it off the window or off the sidewalk. Our public works crew was out there later in the morning on Monday, and the owner had a building maintenance team out there as well, and by the afternoon everything was pretty much cleaned off of the windows. The sidewalks were as clean as we could possibly get them at this time, but we will go back. There's still a little bit of remnants of some red paint there that we will take another crack at once the temperatures warm up a little bit more. And then we removed the snow that had red paint on it as well. So.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwood. Thank you, Ms. Pullen. Mr. Winograd?
Thank you, Chief. And I mean, obviously, there's been lots of questions on social media, and various theories. Have you come to any conclusions as to why the specific businesses were targeted beyond the? And obviously, there were posters put up, but certainly with Becker's was not included. So, do you have any conclusions on that at this point?
Conclusions, no. I can explain and recite to you what was said on that evening, that they were targeting business institutions that they believe were supporting the war in the Middle East. That's what we have. Well, as conclusion, I can't conclude that. It's an ongoing investigation, but those are part of the chance.
Thank you, Ms. Renegard. Mr. Stanowitz?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Feel free to ask more.
I've had some people reach out to me today about the incident, and I've got to be honest, I have not kept up on the social media with it. And one of the questions was, with the cameras out there, is there an arrest been made? Do we know who did this? And what are the ramifications of that arrest, if so? If not, and if maybe you can talk about if, yes, I don't know what you can talk about as far as ongoing investigation, but have they been caught? The people responsible for this, and if so, I guess just talk about that, right?
First, if they had been caught, you'd know already, because I would have been bragging about it, and I would have called the town manager and the mayor to say, we got them. But I'm very confident in our detectives and our patrol officers who responded. We did go out there, we took prints, we gathered evidence. We are still scouring through the video to see what we can ascertain. We've been in contact with CTIC, Connecticut Intelligence Center, C4 in Hartford, our state and federal partners, the JCC, who is a liaison, who has national connections for intelligence gathering and the like. So we are doing everything we possibly can to identify the individuals responsible, and when we identify them and develop a probable cause, we will in effect an arrest.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mr. Stanowitz. Do you have anything? Okay. Mr. Cortez.
To you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I just want to thank you guys that you're always like a step ahead for the most part when it comes to these gatherings. People have reached out to me, and that's one of the things I say, that you guys with the intel are usually prepared. Unfortunately, the trend on this activity has changed. Normally they do the chants in the march, but now that there's they kind of stepped up their game, is there a different approach without giving away obviously too much information as far as how we would handle these gatherings moving forward? Does anything change?
Yes.
Thank you.
Boy, you're not going to get much more. Yeah, no.
And I'll further expand on that. It's still a case-by-case basis, but I will say yes with this particular group. Yes. And as a reminder, since 2020, we've had upwards of 50 to 60 various sizes of protests. And this is the first time, thank the Lord, we had something like this that has occurred. So that's a credit to our officers. It's a credit to our intelligence gathering. It's also a credit to those who decide to exercise the First Amendment rights. So all of us working together, it's been very fruitful, and people have allowed to express themselves. And I know a lot of folks in the public are upset, and how could this happen? Our track record of West Hartford PD is pretty good. And these are one of these things that happen. We don't condone it. We'll utilize all of our resources. But I do want folks to remember, we had about 2,000 people who were walking through this town in 2020, going through on one protest. Another protest, about 500 or 600. We've had numerous events, thousands of people. And, I'm not saying, oh my gosh, this is one, no big deal. I'm not saying that at all. But, some of the comments against my police department, I don't think are fair. And I don't think it's right. And I understand it's, what have you done for me lately? Well, we've done a whole lot for you lately, and continue to do a whole lot for you. And we'll do everything we possibly can to prevent this from occurring again in the future. But our cops did everything they possibly can do. And, I'll stop before I get in trouble.
All right, Mr. Stanowitz.
Thank you. I'll segue kind of that too. When I was approached about the incident, I didn't have any information because I didn't follow it on social media. I knew about it. But I said, rest assured that, our West Hartford Police Department will do its utmost and in the professionalism that we have and the record that you have. And that's basically what I said. I said, we know that we're going to get them and such like that. So without even knowing whether it happened or not. And then the second thing, I don't know if this is for Rick, but yes, First Amendment, right? We all love our First Amendment and we support it. But oftentimes it comes with permits and for demonstrations, and I know in certain towns they have it, and unfortunately I don't know if that's the case here. Do we permit for such public issues like this when they come to town hall and use the public property? Because oftentimes in other places there are permits required and I just don't know.
We don't, through you, Madam Mayor, to that specific question to Councilor Zdanowicz. So to your point, it is public property, public sidewalks. We do not require a permit in those situations. This group did not request a permit, but they were primarily on public property. And up until Sunday, and they've been in town half a dozen times, they've respected persons and property, and this is a change, and this will change how we deal with this particular group moving forward as well.
Thank you, Mr. Stanowitz. I think Ms. Blanks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Chief Riddick. And I just wanted to say thank you to your rank and file members who do an excellent job in terms of monitoring our protests and keeping our town safe and doing the best that they can with the resources that we provide. And just being chair of public safety, I know that we've talked about this in our committee meetings. Our PD does monitor chatter on social media. Do you want to just speak to that a bit without revealing too much, just for our general public and our listening audience?
Well, it's probably the worst kept secret, but yes, we do in advance of these events. But I want you to understand the network building, and it's not just us. Again, it's local, it's state, and it's federal. And we use private entities too to assist us. So we do the best that we can, but understand those protesters, they are privy and savvy and understand that too. So sometimes they talk in code, and sometimes there'll be a meeting and then there'll be another code somewhere else. So these things happen, but yes, to the best of our ability, we utilize all resources available to us to gather as much intelligence as possibly we can, so people can't exercise their First Amendment right, but at the same time do that safely and not infringing upon other people's right of free passage and to enjoy their day too.
Thank you, Ms. Blanks. Anything else? So it was a question that I had that I know the answer to, but I'm actually asking for when somebody puts flyers on a property, that's different than putting paint on a property. Could you just talk to those two things?
Yes. You can stretch the statute and arguably say by placing the flyers on our private property without permission can still be considered criminal mischief, if you will. But there has to be some type of damage or disorderly conduct. But that's a stretch. But it could be versus clearly throwing the paint, which is a criminal mischief. And if it's over $1,500, that's a felony. I can't remember which class it is, but that's a felony. So there's a distinction. And, when we are out there and our officers are making judgment calls, we can't look at this protest in a vacuum. You have to look at our past actions, what we've done before, the leeway that we've allowed before, and risk reward. So we have roughly 150 to 200 people. I'm not going to say the number of officers we had there for tactical reasons and strategic reasons, plus our additional patrol officers. So we're monitoring, and you have to make a call at that time. So you see a few people placarding and putting the flyers on there. There's a bunch of them and only a few of you. All right, if that's all they're doing, you can easily take that down. Is it worth getting in there and inciting that crowd? And now we have something bigger. Well, you allow them, and the history has been no issues, no problems. You let them do it, say what they have to say, and keep it moving and go forward. So that's the world and the lens that our officers were looking through at that time, and the supervisors there. When they gathered further down in the area of 65 LaSalle, our viewpoint was blocked, and had our officers seen people painting and throwing paint, they would have intervened. Because now it's risk reward. They've upped the ante. You have to get in there, take the perpetrator, get into custody, and get them out, as soon as possible. But we did not see that because they were blocked, and was very strategic. So when we say the game changed, they changed the game. They had radios, they had vests, they had a lot of communication, some codes, so a lot of other things were going on at this time that did not occur in the past. So I commend our officers for what they did and their restraint and utilizing wisdom in that case.
Thank you, Chief. And you have had the same sort of group returning multiple times, as the town manager said. This, you think, was potentially another group that sort of joined? No? Okay, you don't want to.
Well,
you don't need to.
We suspect there was a group and a subgroup, but I cannot say that definitively, and it's still under investigation at this time.
Okay. And the question follow-up on social media, is there also up to an event or alerting to an event you will track, but how about after an event and what may be happening or telegraphing something about that group?
Really good question. Many times when we talk about intelligence gathering, we always think, pre-event, during the event, and we forget about, the public forgets about post-event. We continue post-event because sometimes people let their guard down, you can gather information and that like, so it doesn't stop. But again, these organizations aren't dumb. They know they're monitoring, so we just don't stop, and we will continue to go forward and to do the right thing.
Any other questions? Yeah. Okay, Mr. Zadanos.
Thanks, and thanks, Chief. And I wouldn't have asked this question, but you brought it up in felony versus, I think you said mischief, criminal mischief, or?
Well, felony versus a misdemeanor.
Misdemeanor. And you also said that DPW responded, that the owner of the business had people responding. I just think as a business that costs money. Is when it comes to 1,500 as a felony?
Yeah, I believe it's 15. Well, don't get confused. So the felony for criminal mischief is 1,500, and there's other classes underneath that, criminal mischief second and third, which are misdemeanors of different levels.
Okay, so I guess my question is that the DPW response, because that's a town response, the owner of the business, that all adds up. Those people cost money to actually.
This will be if your question is, will this be a felony once we find them? Yes, it'll be criminal mischief, in the first degree, and any other associated charges that would be with that. Probably, disorderly conduct, breach of peace, whatever fits, we'll throw it in.
Thank you.
All right. Any other? Well, Mr. Walters, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just real quick, and I know Councilor Zdanowicz had asked about permits. I know, having had events and rallies or whatever, hosted them myself, we've acted proactively and let you know that we're going to be there, just so you know, for our protection as well as to keep things. Is that a common practice? Do people typically give you a heads up that they are coming, and then? What's done differently when they don't give you that heads up?
Really good question. So we were well aware that this was occurred. We were prepared. We did have our drones, where we activated our drone team for Overwatch. And quite honestly, whether they notify us or not, nothing really changes. Depends upon the size of the group. And again, you can't look at this in a vacuum. It's risk reward. So they don't have a permit. It's 200 people, and they're going down the street. So we can go in and start trying to arrest everyone, and you're in the middle of the road, disorderly conduct, and now what? And now we've accomplished our goal, because it'll be national news. Every media source will be here. Our officers will be unfairly scrutinized for what they did, And then I'd be coming here looking for each one of you for support for what our officers did. And so it really puts us in a bad situation. Now, that being said, if they're breaking windows and, stuff like if we had saw what happened the other day, then we'll take the appropriate action. And we do have other countermeasures and other, we have a blue plan, which I'm not going to get into a lot of detail with, but there's things we can do to get resources here really quickly before, the blank hits the fan, if you will, or if it does.
Thank you, Mr. Walters. Ms. Pullen.
Thank you. There are some residents who are concerned that this group or a group like them will come back to West Hartford. It seems like West Hartford was chosen intentionally, that the group might come back to West Hartford and either repeat or even escalate the situation. Is there anything can you just address that for residents in town who are worried that that might happen and unsure how their safety might be impacted? Thank you.
We'll be ready. I can't give you more details than that. I'm not going to get into techniques and strategies, which is protected even for FOI purposes, but we'll be ready.
Okay. All right, Chief, I want to thank you, your responsiveness, your communication, your information, and I know your judgment has been really good, but always just sort of this check and balance of what we sometimes get is the emotional and the questions, but some pressure too, and so. I want to thank you so much for being that voice of reason and the professional, all the professional actions of all of the officers and the tone that you've set and the culture you've created. So I'm very grateful.
Thank you all. In quick closing remarks, I do appreciate the consistent support from the council. Our police department does too. And again, and for you, and if you can, convey this to your constituents and the need to know basis, we are in a very difficult situation as a police department. We can't forget that laws were created in 2020 specifically to the police department and when it came to protests and everything else. And we have to walk that fine line. And, if we had went in there very, very aggressive Sunday, would have been criticized. Would have been criticized even more than what we are now. But now we try to do the right thing. We did not see the paint going up. And we take that, and I will take that on their behalf. But our officers did a good job, exercise, judge, and we will continue to do so. But it's not an easy call. Easy to criticize, but it's not an easy call. And I thank you for your support. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And drive safely. Have a good night.
Thank you. Okay. And thank you for moving the agenda. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you are welcome. I appreciate that. Okay, but we're going to keep moving on while you guys, thank you again. All right, so we will go to number 4, Ms. Winograd.
Without objection, I move that items 5A. Without objection, I move that items 5A, 5B, 5C, 7B, 7D, and 7E be placed on the consent calendar.
Is there any objection? All right, hearing no objection, the items are placed on consent. Mr. Winograd?
I move adoption of the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Again, thank you all. Okay, number 6, Mr. Winograd.
I move to adopt an ordinance concerning group child care homes.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. This was subject of a quick public hearing. Mr. Ledwith, will you summarize?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Correct, this ordinance was the subject of a public hearing earlier this evening and requires the town to make certain zoning amendments to our zoning ordinance to comply with Public Act 23-142. Should the council affirm these changes this evening, as I said during the hearing, we will notify the Office of Policy Management that these changes have been made and it will become in fact law, although it is technically, we would have to adhere to the law as it did go into place October 1st, 2023. But there are no homes in West Hartford at this present time meeting this definition.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. Are there any discussion? Any comments? Okay, hearing none, we will go to roll call. Mr. Davidoff.
Councilor Blanks.
Yes.
Mayor Cantor.
Yes.
Counselor Cortez,
Yes.
Mr. Dorr,
Yes.
Counselor McGinnis,
Yes.
Counselor Poland,
Yes.
Counselor Walters,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Winograd,
Yes.
Counselor Zdanowitz.
Yes.
Passes 9-0.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. Letter B, Mr. Winograd.
I move to adopt an ordinance implementing the recommendations of the Civilian Police Review Board.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded, Mr. Ledwith. This was also the subject of a public hearing prior to this meeting. If the Corporation Council stops bothering you, could you please summarize the ordinance changes on it?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This ordinance as well was subject to a public hearing earlier this evening and will amend our Civilian Police Review Board with two minor changes, one changing the word completeness to outcome, and the other change, if the Civilian Police Review Board were to remand the completed internal investigation report and the police chief were to disagree with the board's findings, the chief shall provide the Civilian Police Review Board the basis for such disagreement.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. Ms. Blanks, would you like to?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, again, this was a subject of our public hearing earlier, and as I said then, and I'll repeat myself now, that I just want to thank Chairwoman Morales and her team for working on these recommendations. We met as a committee over the summer, and the committee members were agreeable to these changes and knew that we were going to move this forward to the council tonight for this decision. I really want to express the time and energy these volunteers put in. They take their job seriously. They also work with our Corporation Council, and they sing your praises, trust me, so thank you all very much as well. So, of course, I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Blanks. Are there any other comments? So I just want to echo Councilwoman Blanks as Chair of Public Safety and the Police Civilian Review Board. Civilian Police Review Board, sorry, and the work that they put in, and they are so committed to making sure that they are acting in the most professional way, and I'm really grateful. And I remember when this started from scratch with Corporation Counsel's Office assistance, and we moved pretty quickly, I think, to adopt a fully civilian review board. And I remember Councilwoman Blanks and we had, I think, 90 applicants for this board, and of 7 and 3 alternates, and it is really we're so grateful for the commitment that they make and their service. So really appreciate it, and especially Chairwoman Morales, as we have mentioned. So with that, we will go to roll call. Mr. Davidoff.
Counselor Blanks,
Yes.
Mayor Cantor,
Yes.
Counselor Cortez,
Yes.
Counselor McGinnis,
Yes.
Counselor Poland,
Yes.
Counselor Walters,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Winograd,
Yes.
Counselor Zdanowitz.
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. C, Mr. Winograd.
Thank you. Move to approve an application filed on behalf of Chick-fil-A, Inc. as lessee of property commonly known as 509 New Park Avenue to modify Special Development District 94, located at 509 New Park Avenue, to accommodate a reconfiguration of the existing drive-through lane and related site improvements, including landscaping and parking.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. This was a subject to a public hearing right before, our longest public hearing right before this meeting. And I want to thank Mr. Dorr for stepping in again on the council table. He is a former town councilor and served with distinction, and I'm just so thrilled to have you back. But this was is a very small adjustment. Mr. Ledwith, do you want to just quickly review what we heard?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And this application will amend Special Development District number 94, was subject to the public hearing earlier, as mentioned, and this will improve drive-through efficiency and minimize car queuing within the 2 drive-through lanes at the Chick-fil-A restaurant at 509 New Park Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. And and I thought Mr. Zdanovic's question really boiled it down. When this was approved 7 years ago, that was the model that was being used by Chick-fil-A, and now they have a different model, post-COVID increase in drive-through usage by many people for a variety of reasons, but and that is sort of what the bottom line, I think, is they find this to be a more efficient use of space and operations. So, any comments or questions? Ms. Blanks.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you to the applicant for bringing this application before us for this modification. Chick-fil-A is great. I just want to go on record with my concern, which really affects the larger special development district, that issue around safety and the stop sign be addressed so that we don't end up regretting anything in the future. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Banks. And just to clarify that when the applicant spoke before us, their lease pad is inside the area of concern, and this would be the leasor, which is Aldi's, and we have a commitment from town staff that they will be looking at that. We also know it is a transportation, a bus stop, and might have impact by the state as well. So, but you will look into that and make sure that we are making the modifications necessary. So, okay. Mr. Cortez.
I want to thank the applicant as well, but also just how, in that tight space, how efficient with what they have right now the operator is. Mr. Jackson does a great job in making sure that things flow, and this is going to create such a huge relief and make that even, more safe, and that's the whole thing is create safety issues, especially with the workers going in. So I'm looking forward to seeing that in place. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Cortez. Any other comments? I thought Mr. Winograd had a great question about safety and their gear and making sure that they are visible at night and how important that is for everybody. So thank you for that. All right. With that, we will. I also want to thank Mr. Jackson and his team for their investment in our community and bringing this before us. So, with that, roll call, Mr. Davidoff.
Councilor Blanks.
Yes.
Mayor Cantor.
Yes.
Councilor Cortez.
Yes.
Seated for Councilor Fay, Mr. Dorr.
Yes.
Councilor McGinnis.
Yes.
Councilor Poland.
Yes.
Councilor Walters.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Winograd.
Yes.
Councilor Zdanowicz.
Yes.
Passes 9-0.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Dorr. You are more than welcome to stay, but you can go. Good to see you. Take care, and thank you, Carol.
Tomorrow, same time.
Okay, thanks so much. All right, number 7, Mr. Winograd.
Without objection, I move that we receive the application of Weha Development Group East, LLC, owner of 1700 Asylum Avenue, for change of zone of approximately 14.9 acres of the northern portion of 1700 Asylum Avenue from an R10 single-family zone to a RMMS multifamily multi-story residence district zone with special development district designation, overlay for the development of the northern portion of the site into a new multifamily housing development with associated parking and site amenities. The SDD overlay is also proposed to encompass the southern 8.9 acres of 1700 Asylum Avenue and includes new ball field parking. No change of underlying zone is proposed for the southern portion of the property. I move that we refer the application to Town Plan and Zoning Commission, Design Review Advisory Commission, for the required review and set for a public hearing on March 11th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Winograd. Is there any objection? Are you okay? Yes? Okay. There being no objection, the motion is adopted. Okay, C, Mr. Winograd.
I move to adopt a resolution appropriating funds in the Capital Non-Recurring Expenditure Fund to the Board of Education.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Mr. Ledwith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and we did discuss this resolution at our most recent Finance and Administration Committee meeting, and the resolution would appropriate $450,000 from our capital non-recurring expenditure fund to the Board of Education, $150,000 would be for purchase of computer infrastructure, and $300,000 would be for the purchase of school furniture. The council should know that this is not a new request. The Board of Education had this request in their budget proposal for fiscal year '24. And in our collaboration with the superintendent and Board of Education at the time, the board agreed to reduce their CNRE request at that time, and we agreed that if we were to have a surplus from fiscal year '24, that we would use proceeds of that surplus to fund these important expenditures for the Board of Education, which is in fact what we're doing. You recall last fall, we did have about a $9 million surplus. $3 million went back into the capital non-recurring fund, and we are using this $450,000 from that $3 million surplus for these purchases. Happy to answer any questions through you, Madam Mayor, that the council may have.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. And yes, it was Finance and Budget, Ms. Winograd.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, we did discuss it in finance, and certainly I don't need to add to the explanation by Mr. Ledwith. I will just add that one thing that again, this is just more evidence of our great relationship with our Board of Ed. It worked out very well last year. Everybody was very cooperative, and this is completing that arrangement. So again, it's certainly not uncommon in Connecticut to have boards of ed and councils that don't work as well together as we do. And that's something that we shouldn't take for granted. So certainly urge colleagues to support this resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Winograd. Ms. Pullen?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Manager, can you just clarify, I believe you stated just now that it's $300,000 for furniture and equipment and $150,000 for computer infrastructure, but I believe it might actually be the reverse of that in the documents that we received.
I don't have it in front of me. I apologize.
That's okay.
So I may have reversed those numbers.
Yep.
So it was 300 for computer infrastructure. And
The
150.
resolution that we have indicates that it's $300,000 for computer infrastructure.
Okay,
And
thank you.
$150,000 for furniture. And from my tenure on the board, that feels right.
It does.
So I just wanted to clarify that for the record. And thank you for
Absolutely,
bringing
that
this
is correct.
forward. And
Thank
this
you.
is the kind of thing where, so I'm going to support this and ask my colleagues to support it. This is the kind of thing we would not have had to do 30 or 40 years ago because we weren't going to be spending $300,000 on computers. But now we know that we have a very robust curriculum that even teaches computer science as young as kindergarten and first grade. And so these computers are used throughout the entire district by our 9,500 or so students and need to be replaced on a regular basis. And I'm happy to support this resolution in order to achieve that.
Thank you, Ms. Pullen. Anything else? All right. We will go to voice vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And then we go to you, Mr. Ledwith, reports from Town Manager.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor. I'll begin the town manager's report with a summary of upcoming council business meetings. We do have a Public Works Facilities and Sustainability Committee meeting on Thursday, February 1st at 6 p.m. That will be virtual. Our next Finance and Administration Committee meeting will be February 6th, Monday the 6th at 6:30 p.m. We will have a Public Safety Committee meeting on February 7th at 8 a.m. And our next Town Council meeting is February 13th at 7:30 p.m. The Town of West Hartford will hold a project update meeting on the West Hartford Center streetscape improvements on Wednesday, February 7th from 8:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. in the Town Hall Auditorium. In the event of inclement weather, the meeting will be held on February 26th at the same time and location. The focus of the meeting will be presenting a range of design options for long-term and short-term infrastructure improvements to the Center Business District, which includes LaSalle and Farmington Avenue. Summer camp, the 2024 spring and summer camp program guide is now posted on the Leisure Services website. Registration for all programs begins at noon on February 1st. The program guide can be viewed online, or copies are available at the library branches, town hall, and at all leisure services facilities. Registration for non-camp programs opens at noon on March 1st. The West Hartford Community Emergency Response Team, CERT, is looking for new members to attend the next CERT basic training class scheduled to begin on Tuesday, February 20th. Classes will be held on 6 Tuesday evenings from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. and 2 Sunday mornings from 8 a.m. until around noon. Space is limited to 25 participants. To sign up for the class, go to westhartfordct.gov/CERT. CERT training consists of a basic standardized 20-hour course followed by additional training in shelter management, first aid, and disaster preparedness. To date, over 240 residents have participated in this program and have given over 2,000 volunteer hours to the community in 2023 alone. That concludes the report this evening. Happy to answer any questions from the council on any of these items or anything else.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith, and I want to really thank all of our CERT volunteers who have dedicated a lot of time in training and then in service to the community, and it makes a big, big difference. And we don't know what's ahead of us in 2024, but we know that they're going to be helping us in one way or another. So thank you all very much. Anything for the town manager? No. Okay. Corporation Counsel, Mr. Dodge.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did just want to take a moment to make sure that credit goes where credit is due, and there were some very nice comments during the discussion of the Civilian Police Review Board and the work that my office has done with that board. But really, it's been Assistant Corporation Counsel Cynthia Latour, who unfortunately I think has left for the evening. So, but she has done yeoman's work in terms of assisting that board, and I know how much respect they have for her. And the work that she's done, and the council deserves credit as well, because I think in 2020, when Connecticut's landmark police reform law was passed, West Hartford actually, I believe, may have been the first town in Connecticut to adopt a civilian police review board using the new process under that statute. So again, I just want to thank Assistant Corporation Counsel Cynthia Latour for the work that she's done with that board. And Madam Mayor, I'm pleased to say that we do not require any executive session this evening, but I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody may have.
Thank you, Mr. Dodge. Any questions for Corporation Counsel? Okay, I just want to thank specifically Assistant Corp Counsel Latour also she really has been so terrific. All right, announcements. We're going to start by congratulating fellow town councilor Alberto Cortez, who was awarded Rookie of the Year by Berkshire Hathaway. Let's give him a round of applause. Congratulations, and keep up the good work. Okay, food pantry stock is extremely low on essentials. Corporation Counsel, I think they need jelly, remember? The West Hartford Food Pantry needs these non-perishable items: cereal, rice, brown rice is welcome, peanut butter, baked beans, vegetarian beans also, spaghetti, and shelf-stable milk and almond milk is also really important. So donations may be left in the carts at Town Hall lobby Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. And is there a place at the Methodist Church to be?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we have a cooler now that says food drive on there for the winter months. We put, a cooler so it protects us from the elements. So you can feel free to drop it off there. It's always outside, so it's accessible to anyone after hours, and it gets checked regularly and dropped off over here. Just be sure to check the expiration dates because they cannot accept expired items.
So if you happen to be in, thank you so much. If you happen to be in that side of town or outside of hours that's a really wonderful location to be able to drop. So thank you so much. 19th Annual EE Smarts Student Contest. Energize Connecticut and its sponsors have announced that registration's open for this contest. This year, students grades K through 8 are asked to submit their entries in the form of a poster. Grades K through 2, a limerick. Grade 3, outdoor billboard. Grade 4, fictional story. And an energy-saving character. Grade 5, persuasive letter. Grade 6, comic strip. Grade 7, social media post. I think I got those grades all a little off, but I'm not going to repeat them. But if you're interested, this will be on the town website. Contest registration is open until March 22nd. Project submissions are due March 29th. Finalists in all categories and grade levels will be honored at special award ceremony in May. And winners will receive a certificate and an Amazon gift card. And we have had students that have won the award, and it's always such an exciting day for them and for us, and they're so creative and wonderful. So think about the way Energize Connecticut can benefit from your creativity. So Ms. Holmes and Ms. Watson, I got that right, Apartment 2B by Kate Hamill will run at Playhouse on Park January 24th to February 18th. Tickets are now on sale and range from $45 to $55 plus a $2.50 service charge. 2 p.m. matinees are Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday. Evening performances are at 7:30 on Wednesday and Thursday, and 8 p.m. Friday and Saturday. There will be a talk back with the cast after each Sunday matinee. Solar storage info session, February 6th, will be partnering with the town is partnering with Smart Power, a leading nonprofit marketing organization dedicated to promoting clean energy and energy efficiency. The info session will take place at 6:30 p.m. On February 6th in room 400 at Town Hall. This is explanation of how to have a home battery system that can be paired with a new or existing residential solar array to provide clean, quiet power at night, especially during power outage, and also various financial resources can be accessed. One Night in Paris, February 10th, is presented by Ballet Theater Company in the Town Hall Auditorium. The event runs from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. and features French hors d'oeuvres and cocktails, DJ music and dancing. The ballet's professional dancers and members of the Junior Corps de Ballet will perform an American in Paris suite. For tickets and information, go to dancebtc.org. Wasco Black Business Expo will take place on February 17th from 1 to 4 p.m. in the Town Hall Auditorium, a vibrant celebration dedicated to honoring and promoting achievements of Black-owned businesses within the West Hartford community. The Jewish Film Festival will take place at the Mandel JCC Phyllis Hoffman Auditorium or Theater, February 17th and 18th. This is The Queen of the Deuce, a documentary about the offbeat and unabashed life of Shelley Wilson, and it will screenplay at Real Artways on Saturday, February 17th at 7 p.m. Return to the Mandel JCC at 1 p.m. And on Sunday, February 18th, for Irene's Vow, the dramatic World War II feature highlights of the courage of a young Polish housekeeper who manages to shelter a dozen Jewish workers in the household of the Nazi officer who employs her. The film festival finale will kick off on Thursday, February 29th. To learn more about the films, please visit hjff.org. And their tickets will be sold in advance or at the door. Tracy and Darlene's 123rd birthday, February 18th. These are the Playhouse founders, are throwing a joint birthday party to celebrate from 6 to 9 on February 18th. A night of food, drinks, games, and a special reunion cabaret performance by the original Falsetti 4. Admission is free, but guests must bring Darlene and Tracy a birthday present from the Playhouse wish list. So go to their website to check it out. Bless you. Any other announcements? No. So your marching orders are to tell people that the food pantry is low. And where is my agenda? Here we go. We have no communications announcements, and I'll make a motion to adjourn. Is there any objection? Seeing no objection, we are now adjourned. Have a good evening.